So guys, thank you. Nice evening for everyone. Kat is here today to talk about speaking human. It's our, I think, the first non-technical talk this year. Oh no, Adriano, where is Adriano? Here, Adriano talk about the finances in the Netherlands.
Our money guy.
Our money guy, our rich guy. So the second. So, thank you, Katja, and that's it.
Let's do it. Spoiler alert, I'm really nervous. Someone doesn't know yet that's the case. The thing is that I combined in this presentation, is this tech talk, 2.5 years of my experience. So that's basically all I know. And my biggest worry today is that this is such a common sense knowledge that you will not find it interesting. Yet, I think it's always nice to combine a lot of things together, all the knowledge that I have in one presentation, to help you guys to get better at being interviewed. A bit about myself. I see quite a lot of new faces, so it's really cool that Ailet is here. So new face as well for us. You just arrived, but also you guys, you three, I think, three guys new to WAES. So let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Katja. As you can probably hear, I'm not from the Netherlands. I'm actually Russian, and I arrived to the Netherlands 5 years ago, joined WAES 2.5 years ago, and I joined WAES with absolutely no experience in interviewing, recruiting, or doing anything of that sort. So I learned everything on this job, and by now I think I conducted thousands of interviews, and I see people being successful. So you can see people who were successful, they are already here, so good job, guys. And of course I see a lot of people who don't make it, and very often it's not because they are bad technically. They can do their job very well, they can code, they can write whatever needs to be written, but they fail because of the communication skills and their way of explanation. So a lot of the guys, the WAES guys, are already here, and you made it through the selection process with me, most of you as well, so you're good, you know what you're doing. Yet, we will have technical interviews. A few of you will be participating in technical interviewing. So keep that in mind when you're talking to people who you are interviewing. This is what we are looking for. This is the level of communication we are looking for. You definitely will be going to interviews with clients, hopefully not once, but more and more times, every time when the project is changing. This is the skill that will help you nail interviews at the clients as well, because in my knowledge, over 50% of interviews, the first rounds where you would be invited, would not be with technical people, would be with hiring managers, who are very often non-technical. So they're looking for this skill of explanation. They want to understand what you're doing without knowing how to code. And of course, referrals. Recruitment never goes without that word. So when you guys prepare referrals for an interview with us, here's your guide, what to explain to them, what to tell them, how to nail the interview with the WAES recruiter and with the recruiter in general. So hopefully this is useful for a lot of you, and I did my best today to prepare it. So let's go. How often? Okay, let me ask this. Raise hands if ever you felt like after the interview, did not really explain what I mean, that was difficult, I'm not sure the recruiter really understood me, or even worse, our recruiter was just stupid because she doesn't know anything or he doesn't know anything I'm talking about. It's a recruiter fault. I'm great, I'm amazing. So this situation happened very often, I think, and as a recruiter, it's our job to make you guys feel comfortable on our interviews, but it's your job to nail the interview. So it's for those who ever experience that situation, useful. Most important thing to do when you enter the non-technical conversation is to understand what the goal of that conversation is. So a lot of you guys are technical, you know what you're doing, so you're going there to prove that you're a good Java developer, that you're a good .NET developer, tester, front-end developer, doesn't matter. You're going there with that goal. The goal of a non-technical conversation is, first of all, to make sure you're not a crazy person. So that's it, right? So the first check is sanity check. That's all we do as recruiters. We are checking what your communication skills are. So are you capable of speaking with people? So that's the next step that we're checking. Are you a good team player? That's another thing. So this is why you will hear a lot of questions about your previous experience. Tell me about the team. How many people are working there? What kind of responsibilities did you do? How did you help each other? So we are looking for team players. And only the next step, I don't like to say that, but we do have a checklist. Since we're not technical, I honestly can never make a microservice. I know what microservice is in theory. I know how to, why it's important. I know that now a lot of people are working with it and it's cool to work with it. If you ask me to make a microservice, I will never make this. So we know very basic, and this is WAES recruitment, which is quite semi-technical, I would say, but a lot of people would not know what you're talking about. So understand that your goal is to explain difficult technical things in human language. So that's why the presentation is called Speaking Human, because this is what the goal of the interview is. Now, another problem that a lot of people are having is that I am a senior developer. I have 20 years of experience, and you, 26-year-old girl who come from Russia and never wrote a line of code, what are you telling me about the technology? Or another one, microservices. I don't do that, but I can learn it in a week. No problem. So what you need to understand when you go into a non-technical conversation is to slay your ego. You guys are equal to us in this conversation. If you think about it, it's in our hands what's going to happen next. We can decide to continue or not. So go in there with a big ego. I think that's the word I'm allowed to say here. The big ego, if you go in, it's not going to help because we don't feel comfortable in this conversation as recruiters, and it affects the result of the interview. So we're equals on this conversation. Okay. Come prepared for the interview. So that's maybe sounds too much because I have 10 interviews a week. How can I prepare for every conversation? But I will help you a bit. What is the preparation level that helps? How you can already win points before you even open your mouth in the interview. Well, one of the questions that I very often get is, do I prepare one pager? Because this is what we were taught in our country. In Brazil, one pager. And then you have 20 years of experience, and I get a one pager. Can you imagine the level of detail that I have in this interview? Some people deliver me from 2007 till 2019. I was a Java developer in 7 companies. Okay, that's good for you, but this is not enough. So you have to. And the opposite, of course, it's a book. It's a bit of a WAES CV, the book, that's what I'm talking about. And it's important to understand that WAES CV is not a CV that recruiters would be reviewing. It goes directly to hiring managers for whom it's more important to save time on who they interview. So recruiters, I prefer shorter CV, yet with a basic information in it that makes me decide what if I should continue or not with this person. So what is the basic information? For me, it's important to know what industry you guys are working on, so banking, e-commerce, high-tech, something like that. It's important to know what kind of project it is. It's not even what you guys are building, but is it a from-scratch project, migration project, maintenance project, and sometimes it's new features and maintenance. So make sure that it's clear what is the priority of what you do. So if you mostly do in maintenance, you will get interviews where they will expect you to build new features. Yet, do you need these interviews, right? So make sure that it's clear for the interviewer what is primarily the project was about, the one that you're working in. Your roles and responsibilities are important. Yet, I wouldn't go into I'm building a Java platform based on all these long things that I see on the CVs. I don't understand them, and all I'm looking for is keywords, if I'm really honest. Okay, microservices, good, okay. So try to use bullet points. I think that also makes the CV very clean. And of course, very important, technology that you've been using together with version, mentioning versions. So a lot of developers, Java developers, make it to a conversation with me because they are 20 years of experience with everything as a Java developer. And then I ask, what is the version you're working on? 6. We are looking for 8. Sorry, but you just wasted my hour and you wasted an hour of your time. You woke up early to have a conversation with me, took off from work. So important, mention versions. So again, so you mentioned the industry where you're working at, what kind of project it was, what were your responsibilities within this project. Perhaps mention the team So it was a team of 6 people. We used Scrum methodology, something very simple without going into George was doing this and technology at the end. So, and then if you summarize this, and think also, the last 4 to 5 years, important. This is what you're judged upon. So if you go further in time, you can minimize the amount of information that you provide. I would always provide technology that you're working on, but for example, the project description could be super short. 1 sentence, 2 sentences, something like that. Right? So answering 1-pager or book, neither. Base it on the amount of experience that you have. Don't try to squeeze it all in 1 page. We have enough paper to print, so we're not. It's not that important. The 1-pager or 2-pager, 3-pager, doesn't matter. Okay, do your research. Doesn't happen very often, but sometimes people go through an hour of an interview with me, and only at the end, because I usually structure it that way, that I first learn about the person to also save time, because this is mostly where the problem is. And then later on I say, we're a consultancy company. Oh, I don't want to work for consultancy. So these kind of things could be prevented if you just simply go on the website of a company or check the LinkedIn of the company. It also really wins points. When I talk to people on the interviews and they tell me, yeah, I already checked your company, I know that you're a consultancy, you have an office in Amsterdam that opened a couple of weeks ago or something like that, so I know that the guy actually checked. It's for me already, he did check, okay, that's good, okay, let's continue. So even if there is something in there in the conversation that I'm not that comfortable with, I would have preference for this person. So do your research. It saves you time for companies that you don't want to work for, but it also creates really nice bonus points for you on the interview. Okay, this is the discussion today Nastya and I had, and I will share more or less what we came to as a conclusion to. How often do you think when I ask what is your ambition in your career, I hear architect? Always. That's the most popular. The second one is a team lead. The most popular things. And when you ask what do you do in order to become an architect, well, I'm just doing some coding here and there. It's like, okay. But, so the impression that I get, and it's possible that some of these people actually have this strong ambition and a plan to become architects. Yet, it to me sounds like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be really successful and beautiful. And this, how do you do this? I don't. I just continue doing what I do always, and I want to become this. So before you go in the interview, talking about preparation, before you even start being interviewed by different companies, going to different clients, think what is the ambition that you have. And don't think 10 years from now I want to become an architect. Think a bit shorter term and think in what can I do to achieve this. So when you appear in an interview and you're asked what is the ambition that you have, well, I want to become an architect, and I think right now what separates me from that step is that I need some experience with microservices, I don't know, whatever, and I need to work further on my communication skills because I got feedback that sometimes I'm unclear. This shows ambition. This shows, okay, I know my pitfalls, I know what to do to solve these pitfalls, and this is my ambition. So based on this ambition, create an expectation from the company that you've been interviewed for, on the client that you've been interviewed for as well. And this is where the questions come in. So I strongly recommend you, guys, when you go into an interview, prepare questions in advance. Things that are important to you, and it's not a very comfortable situation to be interviewed by someone. So sometimes you get nervous, you forget something, and then you hang up Skype or you leave the room, and oh shit, I forgot to ask. And then it creates this unsettling feeling. So prepare very well. Based on your ambition, what do you need from the next company where you would be working on? Well, I need them to provide me this and this opportunity, and this I can achieve by myself if I have a study budget, for example. Okay, write these things down. For me, it's important if my client is open for working from home. Write this question down, and when you go into an interviews, you can answer this question and create sort of a spreadsheet or something like that, where you can always compare. You know, I've been interviewed by 3 companies. These are the results that all of them got. This one wins upon my desires. So very important questions, and again, it really gives extra points. When I see people asking me questions that were written down beforehand, smart questions, not like how's the weather in the Netherlands. This is actually how's life in the Netherlands is one of the most common questions I'm asked when I say, do you have any questions after I just told you about our company, everything. How's life in the Netherlands? This is so generic that it creates an impression that this person just doesn't know what to ask. So now I have to ask questions. How's life in the Netherlands? So even if you're interested, how's life in the Netherlands, specify it in your questions that you prepared before and ask specific questions. Dress code. I don't think it's much of an issue, but I think you have to think where you're going, right? If you're on Skype, there is no point to put on a suit. I did have people who come with a whole everything, so suits, but it's not very common. T-shirt, a short is nice. When it's no short, it's no good. Happens.
This kind of situation?
Yes. No short and smoking. Okay. So these things happen, but very rarely. So I think.
No, just continue, please.
Yeah, so you have to have this conversation with people. What are you thinking? People who are smoking on the interview, people who are wearing a very, almost no clothes or transparent shirt. It's hot in Brazil. I understand, but it's an interview. So think a bit of the environment where you would be working. Research in the company beforehand on LinkedIn somewhere. It will help to see what people are wearing more or less there, and just by looking nice, by looking fresh, this is also a very big plus. We have this saying in that way, so I don't know if I should tell you, but we say waste face. So we see this. When person appears on Skype, we can see if it's a waste face, so it's a guy who is cleaned up, professional, looking good, looking friendly, and then there are people who show up and they're, I think, drinking for 5 weeks beforehand. So this affects a lot the decisions that recruiter subconsciously, so we're not on purpose doing this, but this affects a lot how we see the candidate and how loyal, how nice we are, how much pressure we put on the candidate. So looking nice, very important. Be on time. Brazil, please be on time, and even before time, maybe 5 minutes beforehand, 15 minutes beforehand, just be available online, check your connection. Make sure that your background is not your wife, making your dog clean or something like that. These things happen. The guy is sitting there and his wife is cooking dinner on the background. This is not professional. So find the background. It doesn't have to be white or black or something like that. It's professional background. You look clean. It's quiet in the room. It's possible to find a few minutes in your time to do this. And for the in-person interviews, especially in the Netherlands, this is a Dutch thing. If you are on time, you're already late. So it's very important that you are there on time. It also shows you get a drink most of the time when you show up early. So you get to relax and see what's happening around. And it creates a really nice impression that people are early, people are eager to get this opportunity. If something goes wrong and you cannot make it, it's very polite to let the person know at least 24 hours in advance that you cannot make it. Because, of course, you are a big boss with a big ego, so you have your time and you cannot make it. But recruiters are also people who block time in the agenda, so it's just polite to let us know in advance that you cannot make it, so we can be available for other candidates. So this does not often happen. Very often we have to go after people asking what happened. Oh yeah, I just was sleepy, or I was held up in a meeting. A small message always makes the difference. Okay. This is an important slide, and then the next slide is the most important slide that I have for you today. So listen very carefully. When you're in the interview, every question that we as recruiters have, there is a particular answer we want to hear back. So if I'm asking you, how many people are working in your team? The answer is, oh, we are following agile methodology, and that's why we have a product owner who sometimes joins our team, and that's how my colleague George is getting the requirements. And you know what we hear is, we want to hear how many people are in your team. So basically we're looking for a number with a short explanation next to this number. So listen to the question carefully, and most important, don't guess. what people want to hear. So, I think she's asking me how many people are in my team because she wants to know what methodology we follow. So I will tell her right away that we follow Scrum. We have the team of that from Brazil that comes here sometimes to I don't know, Argentina. She wants to hear this. No, listen to the question, and you rather say too little than too much. So sometimes we do an experiment as recruiter. Let him talk, or her talk, and then we see how long it's gonna take till the guy says, "That's it." Oh, so usually it happens in 10-15 minutes after just sending, exactly. And it's not good. It doesn't create a good impression. So very carefully listen. On the other hand, help recruiters a little bit. So sometimes we get, especially from Eastern Europe people, who you ask, how many people in your team? 5. And then you're like, okay, tell me more about it. We have 5 people on my team. Okay, let's go more about it. So it's what I think the solution for this is you answer the question, and then you can say, is there anything else you want to know? Or shall I tell you a bit about what the responsibilities of the team members are, or something like that. So that creates the feeling that you listen, yet you are not eager to send. You are the person who in the middle. So that's listen carefully, and this creates a really good impression. And this is where, if I'm but 30% of candidates fail on the first interview because they have this problem of sending information because they've been attending a lot of interviews, they know more or less what the questions are, and they guess wrong. And this is the most important slide of this presentation. This is where I will tell you how to nail any non-technical interview. So it all comes with structure. So the best structure for the explanation to the question, tell me about this job. Tell me about this project that you've been working on. First of all, a lot of people go directly to, well, we're working with Java and we create microservices so our agents can take care of the incoming calls. You're like, whoa. Okay, start from what is the company. You assume you know this company. You work there for years and years. You know companies like Globant, companies like EPAM or something like that. They are well-known companies. And some companies that known in your countries, they are not that familiar here. So it's nice to ask, do you know what our company does? Most of the time, answer would be no. I have no clue what your company does. I heard the name, but I don't know. And then it's nice to explain in a few words what is the business of the company without even going, if you're working on a small application somewhere, what is the business of the company? Don't go directly into that application, go to the overall picture. So we, this company X is a software consultancy company and we have clients. I work directly for the client. Next question, what the client is? Well, client is an e-commerce platform very well known in Latin America. That's enough, e-commerce. Okay, I got this. This is enough. Next level, the project. And instead of going to technology that you're using to show off that you know what Jira is and I don't know. Instead of going there, go into what is the business idea of your project. So why is your project exist? So the good answer is, well, we've been noticing that we have a lot more incoming visitors for our website, for our e-commerce platform, and our platform was not very scalable. So the goal why this project is in place right now is because we need to scale up. So that's why we are doing something with cloud and blah, blah, blah. So the business idea, why the project is in place, and this is why you were invited to work in this company on this project, right? At this point, you also mentioned what kind of project is it, from scratch or legacy or maintenance, stuff like this. So that's for us recruiters to understand what is the idea, what is the challenge that you're trying, business challenge that you're trying to solve. Then go a level lower, go into my team. Well, we are following this methodology. We have 6 people in the team, of which that many people are Java, that many people are QA, and this many people are front-enders. We have a product owner who's not part of our team. So you describe the structure of the team, all the people involved in your role. Some people will not be part of your team, some people will be part of the team, and this is important for us because what we usually do, we draw. So I always draw people in the teams. Okay, I know now there are 3 engineers in your team who have similar qualifications. So then you say, my role within this team is to do this and this. So delivering the code is not a role in the team, it's what you do. But you can say that what we do as a team, we solve microservices, and my role, specifically, people come to me because I'm very familiar with cloud. And this is what my expertise is in the team, for example. So you place yourself in this team, and then it's for us clear, okay, so the company does this is the project within this company, and this is why it exists, this is who is working on it, and this is the candidate I'm speaking with right now, and this is how he is placed within this structure. And only then you go, okay, to solve the problem that we have, we use Java, this version, and Spring Boot, and whatever. So only then you mention technology. So when you build it up like this, for us it's very clear as recruiters. I can go after the interview, I can say, go to Nastya and say, I just talked to the guy who works for this company and they do this and this and this. So build your story up. And then some recruiters can ask you to walk you through your career from the back to the current job, or the other way around. Just adjust your story with the amount of details for the how close it is to today's day. So it's maybe common sense, but really this is the key to nail all the non-technical interviews. Okay, use metaphors. Oh, that's my favorite. I really like interviews. And I sometimes on purpose do this. I play a little bit like, I don't know what microservices are. Can you explain to me what microservices are? And this is the ability of a technical person to explain to someone non-technical what they are working with. So I don't need to know how to write it. This is not what I'm asking. What is the microservice? Why do you need microservices? What is microservice? What is behavior-driven development? What is the difference between unit test and integration test? These kind of questions. And this is where the key is use metaphors. Lego blocks. This is the most easy one to use for microservices, right? So this is the most, everyone is doing this. So when, microservices, so you have one Lego block, so you build it and you ship it, and then you build the other one, and then you collect them together. So this is, by the way, unit testing, integration testing. So using these kind of metaphors, it really makes so clear for us recruiters what you guys are working on to the level that we need to understand. And we also, later on, if it's a good metaphor, we're going to use it ourselves, we're going to talk between each other, and then this is the key, right? So this is how you explain difficult concepts to people who don't understand technical. You don't need to explain how to code it, you need to explain what is it in theory. And not too deep, you don't need to go too deep. Always check with the recruiter. Do you understand me? Is it clear to you? Shall I use a different example? So interact with us as well. Okay, this is a question also that I'm getting sometimes. Do I use we language, not to look like I am the star of the show in my team? Or do I use I language and then I can show off everything that I'm doing? Well, my advice, use something. Sometimes you use we, sometimes you use I. There is no one way that I can tell you, always go with I. Because then it creates, how many people are in your team? Well, 17. It's like, okay, but what are they doing if you're doing everything? And the other way around is also if it's only we, but okay, what is your contribution to the project? So it's also nice to build up. You can say, as a team, this is our goal, and my role within this team is to do this and this and this. Right? So this is short. Take notes. I like that very much when people are taking notes while talking to me. So especially when we talk about the company, it means that they prepared beforehand already, and then they're making notes that they can later on compare notes. So it's not necessarily mean that they prepared the question, but it does show a professional level, professionalism in what they are doing. So take notes. But of course, not just for the sake of taking notes, but actually take notes. So that's always nice. And later on, you can look back and maybe you'll forget something or something slipped off. I don't know what this company is. I don't know. Take notes. Okay, this one is interesting. Be honest, but not really. So the interview with non-technical person is not a seance with a psychologist, psychiatrist, I don't know. So you don't need to tell us all pains that you've been experiencing in your career. Oh, my previous boss, what a dick. He was really not following what I'm telling him, and I was always said no. And the boss before, even worse. So when you create this picture that everything was so horrible in your career before, what would me as an employer, what would me as a recruiter think? Okay, when you leave our company, we will just be added to that list of dicks that you've been working with. And if you run into an asshole, is it allowed? And we can bleep it later. We can cut it out. Okay. But if you run into an asshole in the morning, if you run into an asshole, you are an asshole. Okay, so be honest, but not really. So, but very important is to be reflective of what was happening. It's possible you had bad experience. I cannot imagine you cannot find something positive of the bad experiences that you were having. So you can be honest by saying, well, with my previous boss, we had tough discussions about technology, and our views were not the same. Well, eventually my choice was either to stay and conform, or I could leave, and this is what I chose, for example. So this is a better way of explaining it than saying, oh, that's his problem. It's not mine. I'm great. Remember, ego. I'm the best, and it was their fault. So be honest also about the technology that you're using. So sometimes I see on LinkedIn, and it makes me laugh so hard. They say on the interview, when they ask you if you could do something, say yes, and then learn how to do this. Don't do that. That's ridiculous. Like, can you build a house? Yeah, and then so there will be other tests, and you will be caught. But it's just why? Why would you do this? So be honest about the technology that you're using, about your experience with this technology as well. If my team is using, if my company we're using, agile methodology, but my team is waterfall as hell, why would I say that yes? Our team is using agile or something like that. Don't do that. So be very honest, not really, but very honest about the technology that you're using. Be very honest also about your interviewing situation right now. So if you're actively looking for a job, it's normal that you're in other processes at the same time. And I think it's a bit of a courtesy to tell the recruiter not where and who, something like that, but you can say I'm also in processes with other companies, which also makes us recruiters to work a little bit harder to speed everything up, to give you the contract sooner and win with the speed. So don't hide that you're in other processes from us, from recruiters. I think that's about honesty. But so think about think about how your story makes you sellable for the next company. So don't be too honest, but okay, this is... Okay, gaps in the career, that can happen. That could be months, could be years even in the gaps in your career. Just be prepared for questions about these gaps. Some recruiters will not spot it, some will, but be prepared to have a nice story to explain this. Well, I was bored of my previous job and I was not feeling like coding anymore, so this is my 1.5 year. And then I thought I need money, so I went back to the market. This is not a good explanation for a gap. You can think of something better without, again, being too, too honest, something. So think of something that is close to reality, you reflected on this and you continue. Same applies for being fired. So if you ever been fired, if you had a bad experience with the boss, again, try not to blame the other party. Always reflect. Don't blame yourself as well. Oh, I was just crappy in this. No. Try to reflect together what you learned from that experience and you moved on. So there's no way to... And we don't check with previous employers, but some companies do. So if you really lie, that's not going to be good. Okay. Now interactive part of my presentation. For this, I will ask my colleague Nastya to help me out, and I would need one volunteer yeah, Adriana is volunteer. You just volunteered by the majority of people.
I agree.
Okay. So, Kaliel, who wants to help us out? It's not that bad, but it's actually what we're going to do. Let me prepare you. What we're going to do. One of you will go together with Nastya over there, and as you would be talking to a peer, so technically explain what you are doing in your project. Then you would come out here and explain the same. Are we all technical? More or less? It's okay? Okay, so then this person, one of you, would come here and explain to the rest of the people in technical language what you guys are doing, while Nastya will explain to me what she just heard from you, telling me what you are doing. And then I will come out and I will tell you what I think you are doing. So you will see how information is slipping from you being quite technical and very ego and I'm great, to what actually arrives to us, to recruiters. So we're going to use that. Who wants to help out? Don't be that shy. And
Come on, guys.
come on, someone. Okay, thank you, Andre. Okay, so Andre would choose a project that is maybe not that long, but be as you're talking to your fellow .NET developer. Okay? Okay. I did not plan what I'm doing during these 5 minutes of doing here, so maybe you have some questions or something like that. For now, I can try to answer them.
Yeah, how about questions related with salary or growth on career?
It's good questions. It's fair, right? You're about to join a company, and it's better to know if your expectations are in line with the company or not. It's a normal question to ask. I would not recommend to ask it as a first question after, do you have any questions? Well, what do you pay? That does create a poor impression, but it's a fair question to ask. Same applies for the growth in the company. The company should be able to provide you with some sort of an answer for this. So it's good questions.
Not the first one.
Not the first one. The growth could be, but the salary I would not, because it does create a bit of a impression. Is he here for money? And be happy with the range, because for recruiters it's extremely difficult. Usually we are not the ones who making the number at the end. So for us it's very difficult to tell you, and we have to be careful a lot of what we say on these interviews as well. Because what we notice very often, what I say and what a person on the other end is hearing, these are two different things, because you will hear what you want to hear. So we have to be quite careful with the salary issues, but we always, there is a range we can give you, and depending on how well you do in the process, there will be. And usually the lower one is very safe. So that's how we tackle it, at least at WAES. So I think it's a fair question to ask. Okay, other questions? Use me, because you will. How often do you get this opportunity? Except for every day when I'm in the office. But
Is that an appropriate moment to negotiate something, or for later stage?
Recruiters don't really have much of a what we can negotiate salary. You mean, or negotiate the project or something like that? No. So I would say no. Because perhaps in bigger companies, let's say if you are interviewed for a junior position, you can ask what are the criteria for a mid-year position, for example, so I can see what is the gap. Or you can ask the recruiter, you know, I also think that might be, my skills would be appropriate for the more senior position. Do you feel that something I'm missing? What can I improve? So phrase it in this way. You can, maybe, but usually there is a reason why you've been interviewed for that particular position, and then later on in the process, if you're really good, it's better to negotiate it a bit later.
I have another one. It's related with the requirements. Sometimes we feel like we not fulfilled all the requirements, or the requirements are too high on the job description. Mm-hmm. And how can we manage that? Or do you think if we don't feel that we fulfill or match all the requirements, can we still apply for that position, or do you think it's not?
Applying for a position of an architect while you have 4 years of experience is ridiculous. So it will never get this. So I would not do that. It's unless there of course could be exceptions, but I wouldn't do that. So if you feel like, for example, you miss 1 year of experience on the position, I would recommend that. If you're missing a certain technology from the list, what we usually post as a list, it's a wish list. No one ever gets all of the ticks. And usually the most important ones are on the top, and then the further you go, the less important it becomes. If you, for example, for me, if you're not using your front-end development, if you're not using Angular 2+, and you're only using Angular, that would be something I would flag before applying, because that shows you it's not really a match. But if you're missing, I don't know, a testing tool or something like that, that's okay. So it's a wish list. That's important to understand. There's not a single time we had a hit on all the points.
Yeah, sometimes I have the feeling that it's a wish list, because sometimes it's like a truck driver. You need to speak Spanish, English, Italian, right? You fix the truck and then drive. Sometimes I feel that the position is like that, so you need to know 100 stuff. No, it's impossible. Like 20 years of experience of a technology that has 10 years.
Yeah, I saw that as well. Yes.
So, in addition to this question, okay, and when is the point that I'm okay with this vacancy?
It's hard to say, because I want to give you an answer that is concrete, like count 4. If you're good, go in, but it's difficult to say. So you should think, what is the core? So you're a .NET developer. What is the core technology that could be expected from you, right? So you have to be able to code in C#. Okay, tick. Okay, that would be the first thing in a C# developer, right? Okay, good. Should be able to unit test. Okay, tick. Should be able to work with microservices. Okay, tick. And then when you see these small tools, I can write a microservice with this technology or with a different library. When you start to know this, okay, I just use different library to achieve the same exact goal. This is when you can start, okay, now we can already be a little bit more critical about the skills. So usually on top are the most important positions and important requirements, and then the further you go, the less important they become. Except for language. Somehow language, they always state somewhere in the bottom, yet it's extremely important. So if you're applying for a position that only requires Dutch people, you're not going to get it. So language is an exception from this. Degree is another question. How important is degree, right? It is, but it would be great if it's not. Because by law in the Netherlands, you guys are not needed to have the degree, because if you find a company, like WAES, for example, who wants to guarantee you sponsorship and pay you a certain amount of salary, and you have a certain amount of years for a more or less senior position. So that means that in the Netherlands there is a scarce number of people with the same skills. It's okay, no degree. But a lot of companies are still quite old-fashioned, so the degree is important. So usually what I recommend to people who are about to graduate, but my work is really taking a lot of time from my life, I recommend. It's going to be a long talk. Okay. Oh, I forgot. Okay.
I have one question.
Yes.
About social networks like LinkedIn, GitHub, all these technologies. Do you think it's good to have a good profile on that, or keep updated, or?
Definitely. It's if you want to be found, if you want a job, yes, please update your LinkedIn, because this is the way how we can find you. And a lot of there's a trend in recruitment now to go all geeky, so they use special code or something on the site to find the right profiles. They all end up on LinkedIn anyway to get you at the end. So this is, if you want to be found, update your LinkedIn. If you don't want to be found and already work at WAES, then delete your LinkedIn altogether.
But LinkedIn is the must-have, and the others like GitHub.
Yeah, GitHub. It's if you think it's important for more technical parts, so they will check it. But it's a discussion we can have. Asking you to be very active on GitHub means asking you to work extra hours, right? So how fair it is to hire someone? It's a plus. It's not a must. It's not fair to ask you to keep your GitHub up to date. We do that another round of questions. For now, you can think about questions to ask. Now I have to listen to what Andre is doing at his position, and while Andre can tell the rest what he is doing actually in his position. Okay.
So I work at ASML with Salis, by the way, and we are. What I explained to I forgot her name. Sorry. Yeah. It's that we are working on this machine for inspecting defects on a wafer. So ASML is a lithography company, and they build a machine for writing the microchips on a wafer, a silicon wafer. And there's a second machine which we are working on, which inspects these wafers and checks for defects on the wafers. This provides information as a feedback to the other machine, to the previous machine, which wrote the microchips. And basically, they can fix the receipt of the microchips to produce better quality, of course. What else? Yeah, she asked also about the team structure. So we have around 15 people working on that team. We have 4 architects on the team, a product owner and a scrum master, and the rest are basically software engineers. In terms of technology, I told her that I work with .NET framework. We use AutoFac as a dependency injection framework. I also told her that we use unit tests, integration tests, and acceptance tests, of course, to ensure the quality of our deliverables. I explained her that we work in a distributed team, so part of the development is done in San Jose in the United States, and part is developed here in Eindhoven. What else did I tell her?
What do you connect to?
I didn't tell.
How do you connect these both teams working remotely?
I didn't tell. I don't know if I should tell you.
You're not sure.
Yeah.
Doing a good job,
Sorry?
You're not doing a good job.
Yeah.
Did you tell something about your boss?
No, nothing about the boss.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So, basically, I'm sorry about the business. So, and specifically, what I'm working on is the driver. Is a software that runs on a host PC, just like PC that exists in the machine. And this host PC controls a measurement system, which basically measures the position of the wafer stage. So each wafer enters the machine in a stage, which moves inside the machine. And this measurement system has lasers that points to mirrors that are all around this wafer stage. And by measuring the distance and the frequency of these lasers, they can find the precise position. And this data is provided to the team or to the part of the system which moves this stage inside of the machine. So basically, it's a measurement system that controls the software. I work on the software part, which communicates with the embedded part of the software. So that's also another information that I gave her.
Do you
I
share
think
about
that-
in your role inside the team?
No,
Okay.
nothing. Yeah, I think so.
It's gonna be funny, I think, because I have 3 sentences to say. And I think Andre was also quite good with the structure. That's what Nastya told me. So this is a bit better than actually a lot better than the usual interview that we have. Okay, so keep that in mind. So what I know, just from what Nastya told me, without my personal knowledge, is that he works for a company called ASML, which is a big company that works with lithography. His department is checking defects on the machines that they're producing, and if there is a mistake in the machine, they send the message to the other team manufacturing, so they send it somewhere that the mistakes in this machine could be fixed in the future editions of this machine. So if your machine makes mistakes, it's going to continue making mistakes. It's just the other machines will get better. So then what his team is doing is that they're creating software that defines the position of a wafer within the machine. And when this position is defined, he informs some other team. He works with. That's funny, but sorry, has to be believed. But this is what's been heard. He works with .NET and AutoFuck. I don't know what that is. They do very good with testing, so they do different types of testings within the team, including unit testing, which was me as a recruiter. This is what I want to hear. They do unit testing. And they have about 15 people in the team, of which there are 4 architects, there is a Scrum Master, and the rest are developers. That's it. So, was it anywhere close? Good job.
Give all the technical part and get the keywords. Yeah.
Here you go. This is the level, perhaps a little bit more in detail, so we also can ask questions and stuff like this, but this is the level you guys need to go in. You don't need to explain so much stuff. So you see, this is the structure. So I wanted this exercise to have a bit of a different effect, to show you how technical language get lost in the process, which it also showed. But the structure that Andre used, this is the moments that I took, and we had one in between person, so that's also affects, of course. Then Nastya was a lot more detailed than what she was saying, but I was listening and making notes at the same time. And here you go.
This had to be done before you were.
I know. I thought about it, and I even asked if it makes sense. I know. Next time, now you can do this with the people who you refer. Referrals. Okay. Now, another exercise, active thing to do. This is a blah 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 exercise. So how many? I took some CVs that are very difficult to read, and there's this thing as bullshit generator, and I'm sure that these CVs went through bullshit generator, and then this is how they were created. So sometimes we laughing together because I receive a CV and the things that I see there make no sense whatsoever. It's very difficult. So I created. A few of them are true, a few of the statements that you will see are true, and a few of them are false. So we're going to decide which ones are true and which ones are fake, and hopefully from this, instead of, not only fun you will get from this, but you'll also understand what I mean by how do you create your CV, how do you create your LinkedIn profile, and so on. Let's go. The first one. Proven talent for aligning business strategy with established system development and IT operation management paradigm to achieve maximum operational impacts with minimum resource expenditures. So is it a true or is it a false? Let's do take your time. Take your time. Read it. This is actually a quote from the CV, or is it me making it up?
It's true. It's true.
So who thinks it's true? Okay. Okay, majority I think this is from a CV. This is from an actual CV. So indeed when you read into it, I think you can say that there is something behind this meaning, but it's difficult.
Proven talent.
Yeah. Proven talent. Okay, next one. The project is built around implementing mission-critical applications and deploying real-time system in the area of dynamic development of integrated portals. So real or fake?
Fake.
Who thinks it's...
I hope it's fake, but I get it.
So, I took bad examples, right? So just to remember. Who thinks it's true?
But it was true.
Okay, no, this one I actually made up. This one I made up. I actually went online for technical bullshit generator and it generated this thing. Well, I did combine it in a bit more understandable way, but I just Googled and then it says implementing mission critical applications. Goes in. Okay, next one. Ready?
Yeah.
Seasoned professional with a proven track record of facilitating proactive solutions, strategizing global communities, and embracing extensive one-to-one partnerships. He's a seasoned professional, that's for sure. It's to be fine. You're laughing, but it's actually it's an actual thing. Seasoned professional. You see it quite a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so fake or fact? Who thinks it's a true statement from an actual CV? Okay, no, this one I faked. Okay, next one. Success-focused thought leader with expertise spanning operations optimization, relationship management, cross-functional team leadership and participation, system migration, negotiation management.
This
do anything.
Asian guys. That's Asian. How did any Asian? A lot of Asian. No, he's a coach.
Okay?
Professional coach. Participation.
So, who thinks it's true? Okay, so most of you think it's fake, but it's actually happened. And it didn't stop there, so you see that there's no end. So I had to cut it because it didn't fit into a slide nicely, so it was longer, a lot longer. Okay? Company X is a vendor risk management platform strengthening cyber risk intelligence and simplifying the management process for enterprises performing vendor risk assessments. Company X, of course, that's not a real name. I just replaced the actual name of the company. If I took the... Okay, I kind of gave that one up. So who thinks still that it's true? So who thinks it's a true statement from actual CV? Okay, 50-50. So I thought I'd give myself up, but this is a real thing from a real CV.
Probably some small company the guy was trying to make it bigger.
I have no idea what it actually means. I mean,
Me neither.
and if I will go a bit further, and I will tell you that all the true statements were from the same CV. That would make it even better. And that was a book of the CV. It's not the one pager. Okay, that concludes. How well did I do on time? Perfect. Look at this. So here you go.
No questions.
No, I do have some time for questions and whatever you want to ask. Yes.
I have one question. In the previous session, we were talking about LinkedIn and how often you check LinkedIn profile. But I would like to know how deep you check social media profiles, not just LinkedIn or something else more.
Okay, that's a good question. Shall I repeat it? So the question was, how do we check social media profiles? And I'll mostly focus on LinkedIn because this is what we mostly work with. I'll touch a bit about GitHub, and for the rest, we don't really use any other platforms, at least at WAES. So, how do we check? So what usually, we have a different platform. Recruiters will have different LinkedIn version, which is called LinkedIn Recruiter, which opens up all the see more buttons. You know, when you look at the normal profile, if you wrote too much, you have to press see more, and we don't need to. So we see everything written down. I always start with checking the length of employment. So I'll go back to the first employment, and then I briefly scan if there are any weird stuff that was happening. If you're switching between technologies, if you're switching between projects too often, if you're switching between employers. So, you know, so I'm checking for sanity. And if you're changing roles, does it make sense? So 3 months you are a manager, then you are a very senior Java developer or Ninja or something like that, and then you become all of a sudden Scrum Master for 1.5 years, go back to .NET development, and then these things don't make sense. So I'm checking for sanity first and the gaps, if they are there, are they reasonable? We do check a summary, but my advice is to write quite a short summary and don't write in the third person ever. So Marcelo is a seasoned developer with proven talent. This is not a good, it's your profile, so you write from the first person. And we check for this as well. So usually this is where we read about the general experience, how many years you have, what kind of technology you mostly work with. So it's nice to mention this a bit in the summary. What else do we check? We check for, what else do we check? So sanity?
If you go inside LinkedIn, did you check the person post or something like that?
No.
Just the summary,
No.
just the CV in this case.
Yes,
Okay.
this is what we look. So recommendations is also not something that I would really highly recommend you to, I finished the sentence, recommend you to worry about, because I never seen a bad recommendation on someone. So if there is a recommendation, I mean, it doesn't matter.
Don't take account how many. Okay.
No, what we do look at, especially if the profile is not filled up very well, we look at the technology or the skills. Endorsements, the skills go up, but as in our profile, we don't see how many people said you're good at something. We see what technology do you list as the ones that you're working with. My advice, don't list every technology. So if in high school you looked into Python, don't put Python on your list of technology, because it does create an impression that it's too general. You can do everything. But only focus on the skills that you are actually familiar with and you can show in your career that you can work with it. So this is another way. And very often we search with keywords, right? So I'm looking for Java developers in Brazil who work with Scrum or Agile, or with and, for example, with AWS or Amazon, because you can spell it differently. So it's very often listing it in skills actually makes your profile pop up, because you didn't mention it. You mentioned cloud in your CV, it doesn't pop up, but because you mentioned Amazon Web Services in your skills, it's gonna make us pay more attention to you. GitHub, what do we look at? How often, how green is GitHub? That's it. Like really, there's if you fork someone's assignment, I think it also goes green. So just fork a lot and it's all gonna be green. So I rarely check it.
Yeah, maybe for the first step, but when we
For the technical
when I receive that part to analyze the technical.
Then
The
it's
source code, I also check about the profile on GitHub, Stack Overflow. I do a kind of research about the candidate, so maybe it will be bypassed by you, but at least for me.
For technical people, it would be important to see. And it also sometimes happens on the interview. Yeah, I don't have direct experience with the technology, but I build my own personal project, which is on GitHub, and where I use this technology. That's better than not having experience whatsoever. So that's good to have GitHub active. It's good to post things there. For recruiters, non-technical recruiters, it doesn't give much help at all. And any other platforms I can think of, Meetup, for example, that you attend some meetups. No, we don't look there that deep.
And on LinkedIn, did you even check for the companies that the experience the guy have? Actually?
Okay, the question was if I check for companies that the person worked in. Yes, when you work in recruitment for a while, you see the same companies more or less popping up, and some companies have make better impression on you than others. The bigger, of course, Globant, for example, is a very well-known company, and I know of quite a few people, good people, who came from Globant. So when I see a person working at Globant, it does add value to this person. So companies, yes, it's important, but not as important that I would say, oh, he never worked for a big company that I ever heard about, then I will pass on this person. So it's important, it does create a bit of an expectation for this person. But I know WAES, for example, is not very famous, but if people would search in the Netherlands, in the Eindhoven area, and they will see that the candidates from WAES are really good, eventually they will know to add this name to, we're not only looking for big companies, but also for smaller ones that we know people are good. In Turkey, there is a company called Komodo. I don't think it's big. I don't think so. But because there are good people there, it makes sense to add it to the list. Right? Okay, other questions? Okay, that's, I think, concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. Oh, and this is why it was all happening.
Yes.
Because I get something.
So, Katja, thank you.
Oh, I thought it was the Josh Long t-shirt.
No, not the Josh Long. A WAES Tech Talk t-shirt.
Yes.
And
Thank
a
you
very
much.
special gift. It's a surprise.
Can I open it?
No, not now.
Not now?
Yeah, it's a surprise.
Okay, I will open it later then.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
I open it later. Thank you very
So
much.
thank you, Katja, for this talk.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yep.
I really hope that it's useful. If you guys later on think of, oh, I have another question, you know where to find me, you know where to find the rest of the team, recruitment team. Please feel free to reach out. We are very open to help you out.
So thank you guys for this another tech talk. We still have pizza and we have beer, so feel free. We also have this amazing and sunny feedback wall. So please give us your feedback, good or bad.
Mostly good.
Mostly good. But yeah. But
If you have a good feedback.
feedbacks about the event, the pizzas, everything else. Today the event is being recorded, so will be available on YouTube. I don't know if it is gonna happen quite often, but okay, let's check it out. And we still have a few available slots for this year. So if you want to give a tech talk.
And not only, I think, the WAES guys, right? If you guys want to
Yeah,
join as well and present something, join us, please.
Yeah.
We want to
It's
learn
open.
from each other.
It's completely open. And we arrange everything. So feel free, pizzas and beers and feedback wall. And see you next
Month. Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.